So let's talk about target market. So what is target market? Target market consists of set of buyers who share common needs, characteristics that the company decides to serve. So we said we need to segment the market. We studied various different ways by which you could segment the market. You know, your local market, your international market. So there were various ways in which you could segment the market. Once you've segmented the market, then it's a good idea to choose the segment that you can best serve. Now, if you want to choose the segment, what should be there in the segment? The segment should comprise of set of buyers who share common needs and or characteristics. Now, there are three important factors when it comes to selecting your target market. The first factor that you must consider is the segment size and growth. So how huge the segment is, what is your, how many prospective customers do you see in that particular segment, and can you serve that segment or not? So let's say if you're starting up a business, you don't have enough resources, then choosing or entering into a market that has a lot of customers that you can sell your products to is not a very good idea, since you would not be able to satisfy the needs of that particular segment, right? So if there, let's say 2 million customers that are looking for your product and the product is not available, that might lead to distrust on the company and negative word of mouth for the company. That is obviously something that you don't want. So you need to see the size of the segment. Bigger generally doesn't mean better, right? So you need to see a segment that you can best serve, or you have the potential of serving in terms of size. Also, how much growth there is, right? So can you meet the growing requirements of the segment? If the technology is changing rapidly, can you keep abreast with the changing technology? Can you meet the growing customer base? Does your company has ability to meet the changing demand, the growing customer base? So size and growth of the segment is extremely important when you're selecting a target market. A fastly growing segment and a bigger size of target market necessarily does not mean that it is an attractive opportunity for you to sort of get into, right? You need to see what is your capability and if you can meet the needs of that particular target market that you're looking for. This next important feature when you're selecting a target market, it's its structural attractiveness. And what do I mean by structural attractiveness? How much competition there is. So if it's a huge segment, that means that there would be a lot of competition in the market. There would be giants who would be operating in that market. Can you sustain competition with those giants or not? The other, in the previous slides, we saw the example of Amrit Cola and how it was not able to sustain pressure from the other cola companies, including Pepsi and Coke. And it soon went out of business. You cannot see that brand name nowadays. So that is, they were not able to sustain the competition that the segment had to offer. They entered into a segment that was hyper competitive. And when you're entering a market that is hyper competitive, you need to have enough resources to sustain that competition. And initially, when you're starting up a business, you generally don't have that much resource to tackle or sort of handle that much pressure or that much competition. The other important segment structural attractiveness point is substitute products. How many substitute products are available in the market? What are substitute products? Alternate products, simply put. So what alternatives do consumers have other than your own products? So if there are a lot of substitutes available in the market, then that means there would be constant switching between the products. Also the fact that the market would become then become highly price elastic. What's a price elastic market? When you change the price, it has significant impact on the demand. So if there's a lot of substitute available, that means if you increase the price of the product, the consumer would switch to the next closer alternative that they have. So there would be a lot of switching between the companies and the brands. So this is again something that you would want to look into. The next one is power of buyers. How powerful the buyer is. How much can he negotiate? Right? So if the buyer is really very powerful, then how would you deal with that? This is again something that you need to see. Can you handle that much pressure that comes from the buyer? He would tell you, this is the price I would buy the product on. This is the quality that I am looking for. This is the feature that I am looking for. So you need to see the power of the buyer, and can you serve the buyer in that particular fashion that he wants or not. The next one is power of supplier. Now power of supplier means that if he stops the supply, is there any alternative available with you that you can switch on to? Or how much you're dependent on the supplier. So for instance, if you're running a petroleum company and the supply is coming from, let's say, an ABC supplier, and if he stops the supply, how much impact would your business have, right? So how much effect would it have on your profit? So you need to see the power of supplier as well. So 4 important things when it comes to structural attractiveness of the segment. The first one being how much competition there is. So hyper competitive environment, can you sustain or not? The second one, substitute product. The more the substitutes available, the lesser or the more the price elastic market would become. The third one, power of buyer. The greater the power of the buyer, the more you need to sort of comply with the buyer. Otherwise the product would not sell. You would not generate profit. The third one, power of supply. If the supply is is inhibited for any reason, how much your business would be impacted. So that is the power of supply, and this is all structural attractiveness of a particular segment. Then coming down to company objective and resources. So let's say you find a very attractive segment, the size, the growth, everything just seems perfect. Yet you do not tap into that segment. Why? Because your company's objective does not allow you to do that, right? So you need to see if your company's resources and objectives allow you to enter a particular segment. For instance, let's say Rolls-Royce makes expensive luxury cars. It sees an opportunity in the economy class cars, right? So would it be a wise idea for Rolls-Royce to enter that particular segment? No, it would not. It would only dilute the effect or the luxury of Rolls-Royce. The royalty of Rolls-Royce would be diluted if it enters into the economy class vehicles, right? So you want to make sure you enter a segment that meets your company's objectives and resources at the same time as well. So if Rolls-Royce cannot enter that segment, a good idea would be to create a separate company altogether and maybe then tap into that particular segment. But taking the same company into that segment, that wouldn't be a very wise idea, since it would be completely opposite to the objectives that have been laid down in the company's strategic plan, right? Any questions so far? Challenging. With this, we've come to the end of lecture number 11. So these 2 slides were missing. Any question? No question? Let's recap lecture number 11. So Bismillah ar-Rahman, we are now going to do lecture number 12, but before we get into lecture number 12, we're going to slightly recap what we did in lecture number 11. So we started off with creating, how do you create a customer-driven marketing strategy, right? So we started off with how to create value for targeted customers. And the first point that we did was segmenting the market. So what is market segmentation? Right. So you take a bigger market and you create smaller segments into that market. You create different sections in that market. Now sections are based on various different reasons. It might be geographic segmentation, it might be psychographic segmentation, it may be behavioral segmentation. So there could be different bases for segmentation. So segmentations allow you to divide the total market into smaller markets. Once you've done the segmentation, then you move on to targeting. What is targeting? Targeting means selecting the segment that you would want to enter into. So what segment have you found that you can best serve? Your resources allow you to do that, your objectives allow you to do that, and overall the attractiveness of the segment is worthy enough to be tapped into. So once you've selected your target market, then you go on for differentiation. So differentiation is creating superior value. What different that you have to offer in comparison to your competitor. So differentiation essentially talks about the superior value that the company can deliver. And later positioning. Positioning refers to what position your brand occupies in the minds of the customer relative to the competitors there are in the market. So that is positioning. So market segmentation can be done on various bases. The first one is geographic basis. In geographic segmentation, you divide the market into geographical units, based on density, based on country region, or based on world, right? Then coming down to demographic segmentation. What is demographics? Demographics are observable characteristics of the population. So based on demographic features, you segment the market based on age, based on income, based on family life cycle, based on gender. So many companies use demographic segmentations. For instance,
Nestle does have different products for every segment.
They have different, okay, they segment on the basis of age. So you have a baby range, you have adult range. So there are different ranges that they're offering on the basis of age. Any other example?
For example, makeup products for female, they have merit on the basis of gender.
Okay. Clothes. Which company? Any? Okay, then. So all these segment on the basis of demographics. Then coming down to psychographic. Psychographic segmentation is based on the lifestyle, personality characteristics, and social class. So what is social class? The stratification in the society. What is personality? The unique psychological makeup that every person has that influences his or her behavior. And lifestyle is how you choose to spend your time and money. Then another basis for segmentation is behavioral segmentation. Behavioral segmentation is on the basis of customer knowledge, his attitude, uses or responses to a product. So there are different things that you might consider in behavioral segmentation: how people behave differently on different occasions, how people behave differently when it comes to different benefits that the product has to offer, then what is the user status and how to deal with each user status. So for instance, somebody who has left the organization or somebody who is not using your product, you need to reinvigorate your relationship with that particular segment. Somebody who is using your segment, you need to reward them for somebody who's using your product, you need to reward them for using your product. So sales promotion is increasing the sales of the product. Then somebody who is a non-user, you would want to attract him by various methods. And somebody what is the other status? First time users, you need to help them use the product. Then user rates, they're light users, medium users, and heavy users. And we talked about 80-20 rule. 80-20 rule was where 80% of your profit comes from 20% of the customers. So we said it's a good idea for you to segment your market on the basis of usage rate, right? So somebody who's providing you with 80% of the profit, tailoring your marketing efforts specific to that segment is a good idea, since significant profit streams are coming from that particular segment. Then we said, can we use multiple segmentation bases? Yes, we can. Right? So if you're going international for a company that operates international, what they do is they firstly segment on the basis of geography, right? So they would firstly form a geographic segmentation, and then they would later do the other forms of segmentation. So they're essentially using multiple segmentation techniques. So you have Unilever Pakistan, you have Unilever Hindustan, right? So the first basis of their segmentation is geography. Then they would further use the other segments. But that's not necessarily true in every situation, right? So these days, what companies do is they try to find people who have similar tastes regardless of boundaries, right? So for a person sitting in Pakistan, for a person sitting in India, for a person sitting in China, Birkin is a handbag company, right? It makes really expensive handbags. So it targets all these customers in the same way. They would not make separate offer for Pakistan. They would not make separate offer for India. They would target their audience the same way, even though it's an international organization. For international organization, therefore, for international organization, it's not must to go for geographic segmentation, but most of the companies do go for geographic segmentation. Then we talked about the requirements for effective segmentation. The first requirement was measurable. You are able to count how many people are there, what is the potential of the segment, how much profit can you generate out of that segment, is the segment accessible, it is easy to reach, it can be served. Then substantial, it is if it's large enough or substantial enough to generate profit. If it's a very small segment and the sort of cost that incurs into serving that segment is huge, that means the segment is not substantial enough for you to enter into. Then differentiable, can you differentiate between different segments that you've created? So if a marketing offer is made and the male and female population of this of that particular product give same response to the offer, that means the basis for segmentation was wrong. You do not need to create segments on the basis of gender. So that means the segments were not differentiable. Both the segments were responding to the marketing offer in the same way. So you need to create a different basis for segmentation. Then actionable, is it possible to develop separate marketing programs? Can you create products for that particular segment or not? Right. Coming down to lecture number 12, customer-driven marketing strategy, creating value for targeted customer. This is our second lecture for this chapter. Now let's talk about different target marketing strategies. The first target marketing strategy is differentiated marketing, or the differentiated marketing targets several different market segments and designs separate offers for each segment, right? For instance, what Unilever Pakistan does, it has a brand called Lipton, it has a brand called Supreme. Both belong to Unilever Pakistan, right? But they are both targeting different target markets, right? So that is differentiated marketing. They've created different marketing offer for different market segment that they're targeting, right? For people who like stronger cup of tea, and probably Supreme would be a good idea to consume. Somebody who is complete opposite of that might consume Lipton, right? So since both the target markets are different, they have difference in their taste, so they've created two different products that comes from the same company, right? So the profit streams go to the same company at the back end, yet they've created two different products. So the goal of differentiated marketing is to achieve higher sales and stronger positions. And it is more expensive than undifferentiated marketing. Undifferentiated marketing is mass marketing. You create one product and you market it to everybody, right? So one product would be designed for every person. For instance, Tarang is a very differentiated product. Milk Packers again would consider it. For instance, steel, right? Steel is a mass marketed product, right? It would be same for everyone. So that could be a mass marketed product. Right? Then there could be undifferentiated. The complete opposite of differentiated marketing would be undifferentiated marketing. Now what would happen in undifferentiated marketing? That targets whole market, right? It would target whole market. There would be mass product that would be made, and it would be targeted regardless of the segments. This was something that was done in previous times when the technology was not that superior. It still happens, but the tendency is far lesser. It's less expensive because you don't need to tailor the product according to each segment, but at the very same time, your competitor would be far better off if he's using a differentiated marketing technique, because he's tailoring the product according to the customer needs. Here you would not tailor the product according to each customer's need. It would be just one product, uniform product that would be marketed to everybody. So it would not take into account the individuality of the customer, right? So it would make one uniform product and sell it to everybody. So it would focus on common needs rather than what is different. Now another target market strategy is called concentrated marketing. What happens in concentrated marketing is concentrated marketing targets a small share of a large market. So there's a huge share of market, and then you target only a small portion of it. You may do this because the company has limited resources, because of the knowledge of the market, and because it is more effective and efficient. Somehow we've moved the slides. That's called niche marketing, right? So concentrated marketing is actually niche marketing. What happens in niche marketing?
Targeting
Right, so there's a large market, but you select a small chunk of it, and you only target that particular segment of the market, right? So why would you want to do niche marketing? Because you have limited resources, right? If you go for a full-scale market coverage, you cannot do that because you do not have enough resources. So you identify a small segment in the total market that you can best serve into. right? So in this way you avoid the competition that was in that was in undifferentiated and differentiated marketing. Another target marketing technique is called micro-targeting. Micro-targeting is a technique in which you tailor the product according to the needs of the individuals and local customer, right? So tailoring the product or customizing the product according to locals and the individual falls under micro-marketing. Now, when it comes to local marketing, I'm essentially talking about the neighborhood, cities, and designing products specific to them, right? So you make shirts, Toronto shirts, and you sell them in Toronto. That is micro-marketing when it comes to local marketing. On the other hand, there is individual marketing. What happens in individual marketing? In individual marketing, you tailor the product according to individuals. So you go to a designer and get a suit stitched for you. That is individual marketing. It was tailored according to your requirements. That is individual marketing. Now coming down to differentiation and position, we've done the first segment of creating value for the customer. That was market segmentation, followed by target marketing. And we started 4 types of target marketing strategies. The first one being differentiated, then undifferentiated, then niche, and then micro marketing. Now we're coming down to differentiation and positioning. Now what happens in product positioning? Product positioning means the place a product has in the minds of the customer, right? So that is positioning. Where does your customer see the product relative to the competitor? That is product positioning. Now there are various ways in which you can choose your differentiation and positioning strategy. The first step in choosing a differentiation and positioning strategy is identifying a set of possible competitive advantages to build a position, right? So the first step is identifying your competitive advantage. So what could be the competitive advantage? Broadly classifying the 2 types in which you can create competitive advantage. The first way is you make a product very efficiently. You consume, you make a product in such a fashion that it is an extremely low cost product, right? So cost leadership could be one of the competitive advantages, right? So you produce the product very efficiently, there's hardly any wastage that results in you producing the product at a very low cost. Or you may produce a product in such a number that it reduces the cost of the product. That is economies of scale. What is economies of scale? What is economies of scale?
When the production cost lowers as efficient you get in terms of production and distribution.
The profit.
What is economies of scale? No? Economies of scales means as the number of units produced increases, per unit cost decreases. That is economies of scale. So as you produce higher number of products, the quantity produced is higher, the per unit cost would decrease, right? And why is that so?
Because we're using the same.
Because the fixed cost distributes itself, right? So variable cost would increase, but the fixed cost would even out, right? So variable cost changes with the number of units that you produce, but the fixed cost would not change. The rent that you pay does not change with the number of units that you produce in that facility, right? The labor charges may not change maybe, So there could be plenty of reasons why the fixed cost would spread itself and the variable cost would change. So that's why you have as the number of units increase, the number of units that you produce increases, the per unit cost decreases. However, the total cost that you incur in producing the larger quantities would still increase. What would decrease? Per unit cost. The cost that you incur on one product would decrease. However, the total cost would increase as the number of units that you produce increase. So your total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost, right? So variable cost would change with the number of units that you produce, right? So this pen costs me rupees 10, right? So that is maybe 5 is fixed cost and 5 is variable cost. That is, when you produced one quantity, it costs me rupees 10, right? Now let's say I'm producing 20 units now, right? The fixed cost would not change with the number of units that I produce, right? So fixed cost would remain rupees 5. One cost 5, then 20. How much would that make?
105.
Right? Now calculate. Now divided by 20. What's the cost? 5.2. So now each pen costs 5.2. So as the number of units increased, the cost came down from rupees 10 to rupees 5.2. That is economies of scale. The number of units that you produce reduces the per unit cost. But the total cost here you can see increase. It is 105 now. But the per unit cost is 5.2. So this is economies of scale, right? So we were talking about cost leadership. You may produce product at a very low cost. Maybe that is for economies of scale. Maybe that is because there is zero wastage in which the way that you produce. You use very superior technology, the state-of-the-art technology that results in you producing the product at a very low cost. Probably you're not using manual labor and you've shifted to robots. So now you're not incurring cost on labor. So there could be plenty of reasons why you could reduce or how you could reduce the cost of production, right? So the first way in which you can gain competitive advantage is you offer a product at a very low price or very low cost, right? The second way is you produce a product of a very superior quality. For instance, Apple does it. The phone that Apple produced, it was unmatchable at that point in time, right? Nobody could produce a phone that was of that superior quality. So that is differentiating or creating a competitive advantage on the basis of quality, right? Which else company differentiates itself on the basis of quality?
iPhone.
We just talked about iPhone. Nike, okay. Anybody else? North Face, okay. Anybody else? Serena, okay, very good. So this is all differentiating themselves on the basis of quality. So that's the first step. You need to identify the value differences and the competitive advantages, right? What different are you offering in value from the competitors, and how superior are you in terms of the differences? That is the first point when it comes to creating or choosing a differentiation and positioning strategy. Now, the second point is choosing a in that is identifying a set of possible competitive advantages to build a position by providing superior value. Now, you could create differentiation, product differentiation, you create a very superior product, you could create a very superior service with the product, so after sales service is extremely good. Serena could differentiate themselves on the basis of service, they have a very superior service. Then you could differentiate yourself on the basis of channel that you use. Your channel may be very superior. So for instance, there's an example given in your book of Zappos.com. That's an online store that sells shoes only, right? So they are able to deliver the product the very next day if you place the product at 11 at night. That's their efficiency of delivering. So that is channel differentiation. They use a very good channel. Dell does that. They have channel. You can tailor your laptop according to your needs in Dell. So that is channel differentiation. Then people differentiation. You have a staff that is outstanding, extremely courteous. That could be people differentiation. And then you could also differentiate yourself on the basis of image that you have. You may have a very superior image. Now, once you've done that, you need to select an overall positioning strategy. So if you see here the grid, there are 5 different value propositions. So value proposition is the full mix of benefits upon which a brand is positioned. So if you can see here, the first one is more for more, right? So more for more is the first value proposition that you might make. That means the price is more and the benefits are more as well. So this generally holds true for luxury products. So for instance, Chanel charges you a lot of money for a single bag, right? You go to Ritz-Carlton, they charge you a lot of money and they give you, a lot of benefit for that money. You go to Serena, it charges around 35,000 a night, right? 35,000 a night for a room, but the quality that it promises to deliver is worth 35,000, right? So this is more for more. You give us more money, we give you more benefit. That is the first value proposition which generally holds true for luxury product. Now the price difference, generally the price difference exceeds the quality or the benefit that they have to offer. So generally they charge higher prices and the difference in the quality is not that great, right? Generally that's the assumption. But that's one of the strategies that the companies go for. That is more for more. The next one is more for the same, right? So we give you more, right, for the same price, right? So the price that you pay for bonus, this time you go for grocery is the same, but they're giving 25 grams of extra bonus detergent powder. So that is more for the same. The product is the same, the price is the same, but the benefits are more. Then the third one is more for less. What would be more for less?
More benefit, less price. More benefit, less price.
Yeah, more benefit, less price. Then the same for less. What would be same for less? Walmart, Carrefour, these are all the giants that work under more for less. Same for less, I'm sorry. Same for less means you will get the same product elsewhere. Like for instance, Surf Excel would be available here in Medina Cash and Carry, in Punjab Cash and Carry, and it would be available in Carrefour as well at the same time. But the price that the Carrefour has to offer would be far lesser than those two alternatives. So that means same for less, right? So that is another value proposition that you might undertake. Then the next one is less for much less. What would be that? Less for much less. A good example given in your book is that of Maruti. We are all familiar with the brand Maruti. It's an Indian brand. It does not promise a lot of features in its product, yet it does not, at the same time it does not cost you a lot of money. So it says not a lot of features, not a lot of price. For less, right? Mehran goes the same way, right? So there are not a lot of features, there are hardly any features, and then there is, the price is extremely affordable, right? So less for less is, again, this could be an example. Right? So the first one is, let's do this again, these are very confusing, so let's do these again. More for more holds true for? Holds true for luxuries, right? You pay more, you get more benefit. The second quadrant is more for the same. So the price remains the same, but the benefits you get are more, right? So a good example in this given in your book is that of Toyota, right? They've given it in comparison to Lexus, but we're going to do it with the local scenario here, that is 4 cars, right? They're very good quality, right? They cost you around 10 lakh, and the second hand Paso is for 15-16 lakhs, and the quality of those is, if not same, then pretty near, right? So that means it is more for the same. 4 is offering more for the same product that Toyota is offering, right? The third one could be more for less. More for less is the technique that most of the companies use in their advertisement. So the price is less and the product or the benefits are more, right? So any example from your side? The price is less and the benefits are more. So most of your FMCGs go for this particular strategy, that is more for less. So the price is slashed, the price is reduced to by rupees 10, 15, and the benefits remain the same because the product remains the same, right? So it could come in under that, right? So FMCGs, generally the sales promotion technique for FMCGs is slashing the price down, right? So that would be more for less. Same goes for your seasonal sales. That could also come under more for less, but that is not actually your value proposition, right? These are different techniques that you do, but that is not value proposition as such. That is not what the product's value is, right? That is a sales promotion technique, but it could come, but it would not be for the product. It would not be for the positioning, right? So need to understand that whatever we are doing, it's for product, and that's not for the single sales promotion technique, right? So slashing the price, yes, it would be more for less, but it would be a sales promotion technique sort of, but not for how the product is designed to be. So bonus is designed as a low price item with greater benefit, right? So this could be more for less. Now once you've chosen your proposition value, you've decided more for less, less for more, whatever you have chosen, then based on that you make a positioning statement, right? So a positioning statement carries 3 important elements. The first element is target market, the second one is the brand or the concept itself, and the third one is point of difference. So positioning statement would essentially tell you or it would essentially, you would put what your point of difference is, who your target market is, and what is your brand. So for instance, to the students of concepts, right? So students are your target market, concepts is the brand, and the point of difference is for higher quality education, right? So this is a statement that we have made in which we have identified three important points for concepts. Concepts was the brand, it was providing quality education, and who was the target market? The students of Pakistan, let's say. So that would be a positioning statement. So based on your value proposition that you've selected, you would make a positioning statement. Now once you've made the positioning statement, then what would you do? Once you've made the positioning statement, then what would you do? What would you do? You would communicate that positioning statement, right? So you've decided this is the particular, you've segmented the market, you've chosen your market segment, you've decided on what point you would differentiate yourself from the competitors, you've positioned them, you've decided your positioning strategy. Now it's the time that you communicate it to your end customer about the position that you would try to occupy in their minds, right? So you would want to make sure that all your marketing efforts are in line with the positioning strategy that you have made for your product, right? So all 4 P's, your product, your price, your place, your promotion, should go along with your value proposition, right? So if your product is more for more, that means you cannot place your product in Taramdi, right? Why can't you do that? Because the price of the product is high, the product is of luxury nature, the placement should be made exclusively because it's a luxury product, and the price is extremely high, and the promotions require them to create a certain image of the product that cannot be created here at Taramdi, right? So your all 4 P's need to be aligned with the value proposition with the value proposition that you have decided for yourself, right? So the first point when it comes to communicating your positioning strategy is you need to make sure that all 4 P's are aligned. The second one is, once you've communicated, you need to deliver accordingly, right? You've tried to create a very superior value strategy on paper, you've communicated it very well, and if you fail to deliver it, it would create negative word of mouth. And as we've discussed before, negative word of mouth is more detrimental than the positive effects of positive word of mouth. So you don't want detrimental effects on your company, on your brand. So you need to deliver what you've promised. Either delight the customer or at least deliver what you have promised. If you fail to deliver what you've promised, then there might be substitutes available that people could switch on to. So that's how you differentiate, position, and then communicate your positioning strategy to the people. Any questions in this? No question? Right, with this we've come to the end of chapter number 7.